educational background is communication and political science in Belgium. My first job was intergovernmental cooperation in Stockholm. And it's ironic because it's my Swedish wife who found a job in Brussels. So I moved to Brussels as a Belgian to follow her. And I started working, which is probably relevant for the position, in the European Renewable Energy Council, which has a particularity is that the offices are located in 2 historic listed buildings, but we still managed to get in 7 renewable energy technologies. So it's quite an interesting building, and it really made me like both old bricks, but also interesting way to apply energy efficiency measures, but also renewable energy in listed buildings. From there on, I moved to the European Commission and then left the European Commission because I got an opportunity to work for the Liberal and Democrats Party. And so I guess the relevancy of joining EHH is because, well, I on my wife's site, we have a smaller farm in Sweden, but that is still a historic building, and the same actually in Belgium for my parents' site. So it's 2 small farms, but it has a lot of the hassles of bigger estates too. So it's I think that is where both my professional elements of European institutions match with my personal interests of historic houses. And so this is how I ended up here, and I'm very excited. Well, that first part is very easy, because it's European collaboration that is the leading or the red thread into all my positions. So it's the European dimension that interests me. So going back to my first reply, it's really combination of EU affairs, which is what I do for a living, but also what really, really passions me, and my private interests of historic houses and buildings. And so it's a match made from heaven. Focus will be really on the policy elements that interest us for now. This is something that is a little bit new in the way that I don't follow in my job. I don't follow specific legislations, but so here clearly the building directive is something that is that's definitely going to be. I'm looking at the acronym now, so the EBPD. And where I hope to offer is that the focus of EHH has a lot been on the Parliament, and that's really good. But the value I have is that I work really cross-institutional. So we coordinate also the work between our 5 European commissioners and also between our prime ministers, obviously, and also ministers. So I do have interests and contacts also in other institutions, which maybe could be of value for the EHH. First of all, because one has to unite. Definitely, it is not even a bad intent, but if there is no umbrella organization representing you, well, then you're not represented, and if you're not represented, you're forgotten. Either out of ill intent by your competitors, or just because being forgotten, people don't think about it. So that is quite easy, why it's needed to have an umbrella organization. The reality is that it sounds a bit cliche. It's the saying of Belgium, or at least of the Belgian state. It's l'union fait la force. Undoubtedly, both politicians at Parliament, but even Commission and Council, look at the weight of you represent. If you defend your personal private interests, then it's a very small. One is not inclined to make exceptions, which is good. However, when one can show, as in the case of historic houses, that it is the big chunk of historic buildings are owned by private individuals, and I think this is why it's essential that our voice is heard. So I think we covered the one on policy, and even though, as I said, representation in Brussels is important for just the directives, so energy elements are going to stay, right? I mean, energy costs is going to stay, but even my personal element is that with European spirit growing and intent being more important, there will be more of a classification. So if we like it or not, we will have to define some terms a bit more. What is a listed building is quite easy. What is a historic building? And I think this is something that will have to happen, which will have advantages and disadvantages. But I think this is something where it's going, and this is where it's important that we are an actor in this reflection, because if you do a SWOT analysis of organization, more and more historic buildings are being taken care of by public authorities, by state, which sometimes it's not always a bad thing. But the reality is if we don't, it also removes some of the historic line and occupation of a building. So I think we should reflect on how to ensure buildings could stay in private property. And so to go back to your initial questions, what are the main priorities and challenges? Definitely the policy one we mentioned, but also to be an actor because I think there will be some sort of standardization or classification of historic houses, and we have to be ready for that, because it's really important also that we keep our membership happy and keep sufficient members, the right members. It would strengthen us if we find the right organizations but mostly what matters for me is to listen. I want to use the benefit of the fact that I'll be traveling quite a lot already for work, but to meet our members, because what really matters is what they want, not as much as what we want to offer, but it's how can we help them, not to fix issues and represent as well during issues, but to try to anticipate them. Because of the saying, gouverner c'est prévoir. Well, in the case of organization, really to anticipate some points that could have effect on us is really important, because there are policies that are taken that has effect on us where we're not expecting it, and I think that's something really important.